Hello, everybody, and welcome to our bi-weekly. I've actually been wondering this. I say this every time. I say bi-weekly. Is
Yes,
bi-weekly right or is
That's
it
correct
bi-monthly?
terminology. Yeah.
Isn't bi-weekly like twice a week?
No, it's twice a month.
So
It's
how would I
weird.
say twice a week?
Twice a week?
Bi-daily? That doesn't make sense.
No, biannual, for instance, is every 2 years. So yeah.
Anyways.
Okay. Well, anyway, our bi-weekly dev stream. My name is Matt. I'm here with HV and of course Mark. Hello. We're gonna talk about some hopefully cool new features. Hopefully you find them cool because we find them cool. What has been going on? Let's talk about the last couple weeks.
It's been weird actually. It's been weird because we're we're working on these. We have been working on these longer term type of things that we've been wanting to do for a really long time instead of like working under this crazy like high pressure situation where everything's on fire and we're just trying to like put out the fires, which was like many months after World Conquest went out the door. We were just sort of like going from one fire to the next. And I talked about this on the last stream, but so things are slightly more calm now, and that's kind of still been the case since the last time we had this stream. One of the exciting things that we're working on is we are going back to fundamentally revamp some of the way that our network code works, right? So specifically with respect to how player actions, and by player actions I mean things like equipping your weapon, doing a reload, those type of player actions. The system that has been in the game, that is in the game right now on live, is the same system fundamentally that we've had since the combat prototype, and we designed it based on we took our experience we had on our last game, which was also a multiplayer game, and we made a lot of like improvements to it because there's a lot of things we did on our last project that just weren't that great in terms of the networking code. And, like it works fine still, but it could be done much better. And we made a lot of improvements that made a lot of sense. So Foxhole is, as you see now, it's doing a lot of things right. Like sort of our second like multiplayer game. So we've done a lot of things right, but there were still some things that are, in terms of the way that those player actions are handled in the game right now, that are old. And it's not so much a huge problem of how we like designed them at first. It's more that the game has changed so much, and as the game has changed, the system that we designed in the beginning wasn't really suited to handle all of this, and it's slowly added some problems to the game over the long while, and things like the reload bug are a part of that. Things like getting your character desynchronized from the server state in some rare cases, that's another symptom. So we're finally like revamping how that player action system works, and it's one of those things that we've kind of put off for a long time because, first of all, it's really hard. It's actually a huge feature where like 99% of the time no one is going to notice any difference, right? But that 1% of the time
where things break
where things break is sort of where that's like the benefit that we're going to reap, right? Is for that 1%. But we know we're going to be working on Foxhole for so long, so it's worth it to take the time it needs to fix that 1%, so that moving forward, that 1% won't show up during the wrong time. Like you're trying to like reload your tank at a critical moment, and then there was like a networking issue. And then you kind of got screwed over by that. It's important that we fix those bugs, even though they're not really going to be like marketable. No one's going to care, right? Like we're going to push this out there and be like, "Yay, we we finally fixed like the reload bug, and then
the reload bug update.
yeah, exactly.
Update.
It's like well, it's kind of funny
Julian
because
does some concept art, cranking like.
well, it's kind of funny because the amount of work that is taking to fundamentally fix some of this stuff, which is seemingly a small thing, is the same amount of work that it takes to implement something big, right? So, but anyways, that's sort of a long explanation about some of the stuff that we're working on. There's lots. It's actually a lot of like a wide variety of things that we're working on right now. So it's kind of cool, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about that later.
Yeah, all the common piece that we had before, like 2 weeks ago, when they're slowly fading away. Moving on to the next update and everything.
Yep.
I can see that there's a lot of work.
Oh yeah.
I am. Well, it's the nature of it.
Yeah.
That's making games.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the Devstream content, the community highlights snippets.
Yep.
And HB, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. That was very much appreciated.
You ruined my set anyway.
Anyway, so here's some cool things that are coming up. Once again, the community highlights are things that our community produce. That Crazy Flying Chicken makes like a huge post with everything that was done, like all the cool stuff. And I wanted to show some of this. These are concepts for both Wardens and Colonial Submarine made by Bogdan. I'm sorry if I mispronounce his name. I think he's Russian. I'm not too sure, to be honest. I apologize. But he has been doing art for Foxhole for quite a while now. And there has been some of his stuff that has been showcased before. Because he has this very technical, very, very precise art style. And he's always creating these concepts for both Colonials and Wardens vehicles and things like that. And I really like this because as a submarine, if we were to make a submarine in the game, not saying we won't, not saying we will, it would be sort of like that. It's not a gigantic submarine. It's not like something that takes like 100 people or anything like that. It's something for like more like 5, maybe 6 tops. And so that really does fit with the other vehicles that we have in game. They're just different enough that you would possibly differentiate them by their silhouette. And I really enjoyed this concepts.
Yeah, well, I definitely like the consistency with the Colonial and Warden vehicle sensibilities, right?
Yeah.
Like it's
there's a mailbox on the Warden.
I was about to say that there's a mailbox on the Warden.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a really sweet piece
cool.
of art.
I hope we see more because this has almost been like a series. Because this is not the first time that we've shown this art on the stream before.
Absolutely.
So it's been a whole series. It's kind of
if you guys check his art station, Turbine Bogdan, there's a lot of like Foxhole stuff that he already did. And even in regards to these submarines, there's kind of like, there's some images that are like the breakdowns on how he made them with like simple perspective rules and geometry. So I remember people were talking on art discussion about perspective and how perspective is hard and everything like that. There's a very good, there's some really good breakdowns on how he did it, and it shows like all the structure that you have to make this to have this kind of precision. It's really neat. It's going to be on the community highlights. I know for a fact that KFC will be posting a link to his art station as well, and you guys can check it out there. It's pretty nice. Next one. Oh, this is really cool. Okay, so you guys seen Commander Angie figures before?
Yeah.
Like these, like he was doing like 40K figurines, like on sort of like with like a Clapfoot styles and some faces. But he was, according to him, he was taking a course on modeling, actual like physical modeling, creating his own stuff. And then he decided to make a Colonial soldier.
That's awesome.
That's like his stuff really from scratch.
Okay,
Like
right.
this is completely.
So what's the process of making this sort of thing? I don't know too much about it. I know you know a little bit, but
Well, I did some sculpture before, but I don't know exactly what is the process. But for sculptures in general, you start with an armature, right? So it's usually in wire or things like that.
okay.
Most of the time, you bulk it up with some
Like tinfoil.
tinfoil, something like that, just so you can occupy some space, and then you cover it
Right.
up with like. There are several different kinds of plastics or clays that you can use, and each one of them has its own advantages or disadvantages and things like that. You can also do alterations on existing models. So if you have like a soldier model, you can add on clay on that to have like a shawl or have the pockets where you want them. Like there's so different ways to do it. So after you do that, you usually have to bake it and prime it. So that means just like putting out like a completely white paint. And that's after all the sculptures are already done. So I know for a fact, I don't know how he did the body for sure. I'm not 100% sure. I think he also did it from scratch. It looks like he added on things that already had. But I know for a fact that like the face is completely from scratch.
Right.
Because that's what he was doing on his 4K figurines.
Okay.
And this was like the step up to doing the rest of it.
Right.
And it's so sweet.
Looks like it's painted in like resin
Yeah, it looks like it. Yeah.
as well. No, it's really, really good. This stuff's really hard. Like HP, when HP and I went to the same school in the same class, if people don't know that,
Yeah.
we worked on many projects together. So I also worked on this kind of thing in school, and it's extremely difficult to do something like this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, all the props for Commander, and of course he did also a truck on the
That's really cool.
or the style.
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, we've always talked about like doing, it's not the same thing, but doing like a 3D printed version of some of the assets, right?
No,
But-
it's such a different process.
Oh yeah. No, I know it's completely different, but it's cool to like, because we wanted to do something like that before, it's cool to actually see the idea of seeing like Foxhole assets in a physical form, right?
Yeah,
And
no,
sort
it's
of like
fantastic.
we're able to see that without actually like
And we were discussing like just as a like behind the scenes, we were actually discussing like between us. I was looking into it, making 3D prints of our models and things like that. And some of the things would work better, some of the things would work worse. But when you see something that is fan made from scratch, oh boy, that's a completely different feeling.
That's really cool.
It's really sweet. And apparently, I just glanced at the chat, and there's some sad news. Apparently, this is now a fallen warrior. Because the soldier is a fallen warrior now.
Oh.
And apparently, it's broken now. Something happened.
No.
he was saying the body was completely from scratch, but the bag and cape were added.
Makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah.
It's really nicely done.
It's cool.
Cool. So next one. Oh, this is sweet. So this is a video. This is supposedly the largest howitzer barrage in Foxhole gaming history.
Well, they said in gaming history,
which might be true.
Yeah. So
I don't know if there's sound, guys. Let us know.
I'm not sure where. It was mentioned that there were 5,000 howitzer shells that were prepared for this.
Like throughout a whole day of preparation.
Throughout a whole day of creating those shells, moving them to where they needed to be, and this is kind of the result of it. It kind of jumps around a bit because I think a lot of this was viewed through
a binocular.
You're right. So it's but you get the idea, especially if we skip through to the timestamp.
1.5 cents.
Like around 240, something like that. Yeah.
Yes. It's around here, and it's just this crazy howitzer barrage that doesn't stop for like 5 minutes, and this is like, you know, the awesome like display of 500 howitzer shells, and it's just nuts. I think this is really exciting to see because this is the exact kind of you know,
craziness?
Well, you always hear us talking about like war stories and these really specific events that you remember, right? And I think this is one of those things that we'll look back and you know, like everybody who sees this, will be like, remember that time in Foxhole when there was just like 500 howitzer shells, right? It's just crazy. It just goes, you know, it's up there with some of those past stories of that organization of like 30 tanks or something. I know there was that other story just from like a few conquests ago where a bunch of players, they just went and like organized this crazy like invasion of like a whole bunch of tanks, and it's just kind of up there with that, right?
It is really impressive. Like I know we mentioned it before that like when we start the game, we never knew if it was going to work or not. But the fact is that it's surprising to us how much the players can organize themselves when they put their minds to it. How much, because this requires like an unbelievable amount of coordination.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And, like it's really not easy.
Well, it's like to me it's like making a mark in the history of Foxhole, right? Like this has never been done before, or at least never been like captured on footage.
Yeah.
To our knowledge.
And this is to our knowledge like one of the first times that we're continuing to do this huge a howitzer attack, and this is going to be there. This is going to be there. For children. And this is also like the sandbox at work. We never planned for players to be able to do this. We were never like, we're designing the howitzer so that someone can come along one day and spend the whole day making 500 howitzer shells and then firing them off all at once. Like we never. That was not in the plan, and I think that is sort of the sandbox at work, right?
Yeah.
It's that we wanted players to do these very like extreme things, and there's trade-offs, you know, like the game is not the easiest game for new players, and it's something we hope to work on. But some of the trade-offs is like you can do very complex things like this, right? Like things. Like this can happen in the game, whereas a game is much more constrained, with much less player freedom, without this many players working together. This would only happen in like a canned scene, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that this is happening just kind of by sheer will of the players, to me, is really cool. So
No, I think it's absolutely insane. I hope you guys have a chance to check it out on in the community highlights itself. The whole video is there. There's way more videos there in general as well. And another thing, why is it now? Another thing that is coming up, there's another video, and this one is from our friend I Saw Bear.
Yep.
Which shout out for him for.
Haven't subscribed to his channel yet? You should definitely do that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. He has always, ever since the beginning of this game, every single update he creates a video like explaining the update, and I know other people are also doing that now, which is really cool to see how those wheels start turning. But he still does other videos as well. He plays other games as well. But it was nice to see that he started with like less than 100 subscribers, and now I know for a fact that he surpassed more than 3,000 very recently. Yeah,
actually, like that's some cause for celebration.
Yes,
like,
absolutely. So cheers.
Yeah.
First of all,
3,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
I Saw Bear is also
awesome.
one of our oldest content creators for Foxhole.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's been pretty cool to watch his videos also just like progress and get better.
Yeah.
And
I think the last video had something like 16,000 views or something crazy like
Wow.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So this video it's another cool one. It's a video that got passed around. And it's
Fortnite.
yay.
Go play it now for free.
Hashtag ad.
It was really cool. It got passed around a lot in the office as well, because it shows up the emergency of the combat and how things change very quickly, and also how to use intel
Yep.
in a very, very, very effective way.
Shirts and shit like that.
Holy
Look at
shit.
that. I love
Half
that
tracks
shit.
on the east side. We gotta shift east.
Yeah.
And then he just
Out the window. Let's go.
like despairs.
On me, guys.
God
On me.
damn, he jumped out the fucking window.
This is really good.
Yeah, just. Let's
Yeah,
go.
I love how
Go.
I really
They're
love
shifting. They're east.
watching this
East gate,
because
east gate.
Okay.
again, this is almost like
All right. Give me a shot.
a story
Hear
that
explosions.
unfolds
Now's
within the
time,
game.
gentlemen.
It's like a mini story.
Pick me a high point.
You know, spotting the half tracks coming, and then like
Over here, house.
so kind of like sounding the alarm, right? And then everybody going to like prepare for it,
Holy
and
fuck,
you know
get in,
this is really
Oh,
cool.
shit, the thing's gonna go down.
This is the kind of stories that we've always wanted to happen, and there's a lot of these.
I need
There
another
was
house.
one by Helping Hands that we saw a while back. I don't know if you saw that one, HB.
Also another, by the way, another streamer that has been with us
Don't get in the house.
for a long time.
Yeah.
And if you haven't had a
Damn
chance,
it.
Yeah,
go check them
and-
out.
And there's just
Grab this
like
sticky
these
grenade.
really cool moments that, you know, like again, you don't always get these cool moments. Like sometimes in Foxhole, you get a long time of just running around, and maybe you die, and it's
On me, guys, on
frustrating
me.
because you
Half
gotta
tracks are
walk
shipping
back.
south.
And like hopefully we can make some of that stuff a little better. But the reality is too that without those times, you don't get these exciting moments because
like
these are not canned, right? Like
Yeah.
these just happen in the game, and it's just really cool. Like.
And yeah, not only that, it's these are the moments that you will remember from Foxhole and pretty much not any other game, in a way that since they are not canned, nothing can reproduce them. You can have
Yeah,
similar things
you can have similar
happen,
things, yeah.
but nothing will be like that.
Yeah.
Imagine the people that are attacking and finding out a moment later that
Get ready.
there were people prepared, just waiting for them to knock that gate down.
Yeah.
And imagine the tension of being one of those pillboxes against 6 half tracks that are coming
Yeah.
towards your way, and you're like infantry.
Yeah.
It's
Wait for them
it's
to
not
get
easy,
close.
and it's I don't know. I find it really cool.
Yeah, this was a really this was a really cool moment. So like they basically spend the next couple of minutes
Get to cover,
trying
get to
trying to
cover.
hold the line against all these half tracks, and I think they are successful in the end. And it was
Yeah.
really cool to see.
I think I've said use this metaphor a few times, but
Aim high. Aim high
Foxhole
with
is
those
kind of
rockets.
like we supplied the canvas and the players are like a brush, and we just kind of give them the tools to tell these cool stories
Absolutely.
and to do
yeah.
these cool things. I think that's continuing to be a goal or a priority.
Which is really cool because players themselves will do these really exciting things that will be very difficult for us to do in like a canned setting. Like we
Or basically impossible, to be honest.
it's impossible because you know it's each moment is not the same as the last because it's generated by the players, right?
Yeah.
So
No, it's really exciting. I love seeing just like the things that I never expected to see with this. Like we spend all this time working on each individual element, and then you see these things come together, and it's like, oh, I didn't expect to see that happen with
Yeah.
like this space that I worked on or this thing that I did.
well, it's very often that we like intend for one thing and then players
yeah.
do something else, and we're like, well, you know, like why are you doing that?
It's
Why are
like,
you doing the thing that
it's like,
we didn't plan to do, right?
oh, that's how you were gonna do that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
so on to the next.
And the last thing is just a couple of pretty cool art that also pop up. Once again, Frick is at it again with having continuing his mobile style of game design like illustrations. I don't know. It's just really sweet, and I had to showcase because it's me on the half track. So
The return of the colonial and warden balls.
and the warden and the
You
warden
just
and colonial balls.
feature content that has yourself in it.
Well, if Matt picks the questions that he wants to answer, I get to pick the content that I want to see.
That's fair.
Yeah, no, I just thought it was cool because the warden balls and the colonial balls, there are several little comics that are showing up again now.
Mhm.
So I remember, of course, this is not the first one to have them, but there was a little resurgency of them,
Mm.
and it was pretty sweet. It's pretty cool things. I actually like the balls. I like the simplicity and the cheekiness of
Yeah.
like the design and all that. Yeah, that's it for community highlights. If you have a chance, check it out on the blog,
Cool.
foxholegame.com, and KFC will be posting the
Probably tomorrow or
Yeah, something like that,
sometime this week. You'll know.
And
Yeah.
it's coming.
Yeah.
And if you want to see some of your stuff in here, send it our way. We're always happy to see more fan-made submissions. It's unfortunate that this format doesn't allow us, for instance, to show some of the war stories. Because on this community highlights are gonna be some war stories that I saw that.
Maybe we should have a stream where we just sit there and like read out a war story.
We got somebody with a good voice. We got like Adam that has a good voice and reads it out.
Exactly.
I was just going to issue a challenge to the community actually with the war stories.
Oh, what is it?
So like one of the things that I want to see, first I'm just going to say, I would love to see like some of these war stories like animated in Flash or something. But if you're not going to animate it, because that's obviously a lot of work, it would be really cool to just have someone like do a dramatic reading of some of these war stories.
I would love to see them hand drawn.
I like the dramatic reading. I think that would be kind of cool.
My first thing was like, I would love to see these things animated.
Because like, we have a lot of visuals,
really
right?
sweet.
But just someone reading it would be kind of cool. And it's kind of this old like storytelling type of like style.
Yeah,
right? I think that'd be cool.
So that's something I want to see because I think those things are really cool and like they don't really get to be featured because it's hard to just show text aside from like go read it. Yeah. And I know that KFC does feature a lot of that on the blog as well.
So that's what I'm saying. Like I particularly saw some cool ones. I think I only had to skim it and there was some really nice stuff. And then of course, as Sir just mentioned, the next step is that we have a live reenactment of these war stories.
Don't do the live reenactment.
And then the next step is that we have an abridged version of the live reenactment of the war stories.
Oh god.
Redubbed. Anyway, let's go to community development updates.
All right, the moment you've all been waiting for.
Yes.
Right.
What do we
Not
have?
so. Did I just overhype it?
Not to. There's like nothing. Well, I mean, it's kind of huge.
It's pretty exciting.
It's pretty exciting, not in like a content flashy type of way, but in something that I think Foxhole has needed since forever, right? And this is something we've been working on for months, and we're starting to get to a point where we think it won't be too much longer before you guys see this. But basically, a revamp of the communication tools in the game, right? Because after all, Foxhole's kind of about working together, right?
Kind of.
Yeah, kind of. So there's some cool things we're working on here. One big feature is player operations, right? So this is basically going to be a new tool to help players to coordinate, right? Basically there's a bunch of goals that we had with this. One of the goals is we wanted to really, we took a look at what players were already trying to do in the game, right? So players that don't necessarily, or both players that do have access to more tools like voice chat and things like that. We were taking a look at what they were trying to do already, what players trying to do with the chat tools that we have now, like trying to scream into the text chat. So we were trying to like take a look at what were people trying to do already, and then try to build a tool to let them do that in a more effective way, right? And we also, another one of our goals was to make sure that the more experienced players had a way to help the less experienced players, right? So they can kind of include them in these really crazy like war stories that they have, right? In these like, for example, with like the 500 howitzer shells, right? In that war story, if the people doing that were able to like enlist the help of these other players, right? Right now that there's no easy way to do that in the game, right? Yep. So that's been some of like the motivation around this. We wanted to be rich, so it's just not like some very simple thing like the mission objectives that we have right now, but there's actually a lot of things that you can do with this tool, right? First of all, the whole thing is designed to help players organize around specific objectives, right? So right now, the basic squad system we have is more for like sharing things, right? Not so much about trying to like accomplish an objective. You can do that in a really basic way, but what we found was that larger groups of players, they typically want to try to do something specific, like, okay, we want to try to go and take over this town, right? And then for taking over that town, we need a certain number of like items. We need certain vehicles. We need this many players, and we need to do this at that specific time, right? Yeah. That's sort of like the main like ingredients that we saw, and what we wanted to do was to provide a tool that allows you to do all that in a more like explicit way, right? And so we were thinking, what should be part of an operation, right? So first of all, it is a group of players, right? You can join an operation. Operations can be created by anyone, basically, right? And anyone can join it. There's like a list of objectives.
Yep.
There are stages to each operation, right? And within each stage of the operation, you have a location, a start time, and a list of required equipment and vehicles. So yep. It could be something like, we are going to take the abandoned ward. That's the objective. First stage, we're gonna go to Sun's Hollow. That's gonna start at this specific time. We're gonna need explosives. We're gonna need medical. We're gonna need supplies, and we're gonna need half tracks, right? Yep. And now you have this group of players that all clearly know what what you're trying to do with this objective. And all this stuff, this is already happening in the game, but instead it's happening through usually like a voice chat channel on like Discord or something. And it's pretty much hard or impossible for a random player to try to hook into this, yeah. Right? So that's sort of like the overview. Some of the features it's going to have is that this is going to be a cross-region faction-wide tool. So when you create an operation, you're creating it for the world, right? So it doesn't care. There's no concept of an operation in the Deadlands or in the Heartlands. It's just in the world, and the stages are in various parts of the world, right? Mm-hmm. There's going to be some tools that you can use on the map to plan. This is going to start off more on the basic side, so it's not going to be like a drawing tool, in case that's sort of the first thing that kind of pops up in your mind. But you will be able to sort of like visually show the stages of your operation. Yep. And sort of like the rally points, what equipment you need where, and what the starting points are, or what the start times are. So there's going to be some tools you can use on the map. Player roles, so you're going to be able to assign roles to players, right? At the most basic level, there is going to be a division between the operation leaders and all the other members of the operation, but we're going to be also allowing the leaders to mark roles on certain players, right? So you can like identify what those players are trying to do in the game, mm-hmm. right? There's going to be voice chat integration, right? So this is another big thing that we're looking into, where right now voice chat is really basic in the game. You can just hit a button and then you just talk to the players that are close to you in the world. But we want to move from that model, which we're going to keep that functionality still, but we want to add two extra not voice channels, but two extra
voice options in a way.
Voice options, right? One is that you can talk to players that are in your operation, and you can talk to the other leaders of the other operation. So you can kind of plan at the high level, and you can also plan within your local group as well, right? And this is again not just going to be on a region basis. This is going to be across basically across the whole world. So it doesn't matter if your operation members are in a whole other region. They can be at this side of the world. You can still talk to them through this voice chat, right? With the text chat, we're also going to be doing a bunch of improvements there, not only allowing you to have a dedicated tab for your operation, but there's also a bunch of other improvements that we're going to be bringing to the text chat, like along with this. Probably talk about that more, maybe in like a devlog or something, but we're definitely making some improvements that you'll probably like expect. There's a lot of really bad things about our text chat window right now. And oops, I think that's kind of it in terms of the features. So we're going to show some early mock-ups so you guys have like a sense of what's going on, but a lot of stuff has changed already, but because the changes are not finalized yet, we didn't want to show any of it yet. But what we will show you is sort of an earlier version of how we had like originally visualized some of the stuff. So but just realize some of the stuff is going to change. I mean, it has changed already, right? So
it's basically a lot more of a how it works more than how it
it's more of a functional mock-up than like a visual mock-up. But basically, when you go to the map screen, you can see all the operations in your faction. You can join any operation, and once you're part of one, or if you've made your own, you can like delete it. You can change it, and you can sort of just have a really good visibility of what players are doing at this point in time. Because right now you go into Foxhole and you're like, okay, you get dropped into this world. You don't really know what the hell is going on. Like, you know, you can just be walking around for like 5 minutes and then you die and then you don't really know what the hell's going on. But we wanted to change it so that when you join the game, you sort of, what we hope is that the paradigm will shift from I'm going to this specific region to sort of like I'm going to this group of players that are trying to do something, right? And that's kind of what you see at the screen here. Here, this is sort of a mock-up of what an operation will look like, what the map tools will look like. Basically, you know, again, showing like the objective, the expiry, or like when the operation, each stage of the operation is going to start, the location of each of the operations, and the items that are required for it. And then finally, this is just, again, this is like super early from like probably like months ago. But this is an idea of like how your operation chat is going to look, and also like the list of players with the roles highlighted with the colors, right? So yeah, that's kind of an early look at what player operations are going to be. And yeah, I hope it's I'm really excited about this because, you know, again, it's not flashy new content, but I think that it's been a long time that we've been wanting something like this in the game, and I don't know, we're really excited to see where it goes.
I'm particularly excited. I've been working very closely to all these changes in operation and chat, and working in tandem with all the other the programmers as well. And this is something that we've been discussing and changing and thinking about for quite a while now, for like a long time. And we had some things done in the back end of the code to support this, and now we think, hopefully, fingers crossed, everything is ready for us to bring this to fruition.
Yes.
And we really do believe that this will help a lot with the players. Not because it's not much different from what you guys already are doing, as Mark said. For instance, using Discord and using other tools that even other players develop. But what it will allow is for people that are in the game that usually don't have these tools, or they're not on Discord, or they're from different regions, or they're just random people that are arriving. We will help them focus on what is necessary. We'll help you as a leader to organize these people. We'll help, and we'll hopefully the whole idea behind it is to make your life easier. That you don't have to use all these ancillary tools. That you don't have to switch between different softwares or anything like that. We don't expect you to completely stop using it and whatever. Feel free to do whatever you want, of course. But I think it will be very, very helpful. And there's a lot of things that are interconnected. So as you can see, the operations are kind of connected with the chat, which are connected to the voice channel. So that's why it's taking longer than what we expected. And I'm sure that in the future, other aspects of the game, even things that I saw in the chat, you guys typing in the chat right now, in regards to other things like squads, for instance, will end up being integrated in one way, shape, or form into this.
Yeah, and I think that it's important also to note that like not everything necessarily is going to come at once. Mm-hmm. Like everything else that we do, we need to get parts of it out there, and we need to test it in a real environment, see if the technical and like the UI aspects are actually working as we want them to work. Yeah. And then from there, we're just gonna make it better, right? So I'm excited because that tiny text chat has been the same for like a year and a half or something.
I think it's worth mentioning too, just reminding that the visuals are just a proof of concept, because I did see a lot of people just mentioning like certain things.
The majority, particularly the like I think the one that is the farthest. If you guys want to see like how it is to develop new UI and new features, go back to the one that has like the orange like stages. That is not a UI. That is just like a technical workflow. Like we need this information on the screen. We need this information for the players. At least back then we needed all that. Yeah. And it really does not reflect how it's gonna look to you guys. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to Q&A, our favorite part of the show. That was exciting though. I think that's a lot of meat to chew on.
Very
analogy.
Very tasty. That's
for a little while, because I think that's going to be game changing, even though it might seem really small on the surface. So a lot of questions came up, and then this was also the first question that was asked for the Q&A, specifically about. I'm going to credit this to Pachurin because they were the first one through. What is going to be, or is there going to be a level restriction on the operations, like
the creation
in general?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So. This stuff is probably gonna be tweaked until the end, but the starting point that we have is that we wanted to like remove that. We want to remove that limitation.
But calm down.
But we have another way. Like we're very much aware of like everybody spamming their own operations. There's like 300 operations in your faction. Yeah. We like design a system where basically the number of players that join your operation counts as somewhat of like an upvote for that operation, and it will make it more like prominent. Mm-hmm. So that much like if you make like a Reddit post, sure, like anyone can make a post, right? But if it isn't like upvoted, it's pretty much a meaningless post. It'll never be seen. And we're sort of taking that approach so that basically anyone has like the power to go ahead and like make an operation. Now that doesn't mean we might not put some kind of minimal, like bare minimum limitation on that. That's something that we'll have to kind of wait and see. Like, I don't know, like there might be value to saying, if you're not even a private, at least like if you just got into the game, you shouldn't be creating an operation. Like that's not saying that we won't do that, but we want to make it less restrictive than the mission objective system.
And also in that regards, we also, I don't know if you guys noticed on the mock-up, there was a little thing, for instance, like who was the person that added and created the operation. So we are making sure that there are mod tools for our moderators to be able to track them and deal with anything that is not consistent to our terms of service and to being like good for the community.
I have a follow-up question myself, and I'm assuming that there will be like spam guards and stuff like that. So if you create an operation, you can't just like spam a bunch of different operations.
Of course,
Just to
absolutely,
sort of completely clear about it.
Too soon for everything.
Too soon. It's too soon to create a new operation.
Too soon to talk about too soon. Let's move on. With operations, I'm worried about intel leaks, says Sir. How are we going to handle streamers and things like that?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Well, Intel leaks are already problems for any regard. So we don't expect that to change much. I think just like in most games, streamers will have to we'll probably first of all put a delay, and second of all, the idea is not to have all the operations on the screen at the same time, so you don't have like a bunch of things showing up every time you open the map, and it's like just a cluster.
A clusterfuck?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know why I censor myself. I say a word all the time. Like it took me a second. Like, can I say this right now? Yes, I can.
It's a cluster truck.
Yeah, a cluster fudge, right? So we don't want that. We want, for instance, to have so that you can filter out operations and not show them. So a streamer, if we're talking, for instance, in the case of streamer, he wouldn't have anything showing up on his map, like as a default, things like that. He would have his filters turned off for that, and that would solve that problem. Of course,
it's a good question though.
You could always say something about leaking information to the other team, but that can already happen with like Discord chats and everything like that. So I don't know, if we don't know yet if that will be a contention point or not. We are keeping in mind that it might be.
I just don't know. Like it's tough.
Yeah.
I think it's really, really difficult because I've thought about this a lot, and I've talked with KFC a lot about like spectator tools and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And like, how do you protect the stream? Like you're choosing to stream, so therefore you're choosing to project that information. Even having a button to hide it, you don't know who's watching your stream, right? Outside of like, the mini map thing, I think that's really, really tough, just simply because it is it's not like playing something like CS where like the rounds are so short that it kind of ends up not mattering. It's like an intel leak could be like really damaging. So it's really tough to know. No. I think that's just a really tough problem, and it's definitely something we were thinking about and I've thought about. I do think it's a really hard one for this particular kind of game. Do you have any thoughts, Mark?
Well, I think it's a good question, and I think that like what you guys were saying is not exclusive to this feature. Like it could be anything. Like just flashing the map for a second and revealing the location of like all your outposts is kind of really like damaging enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
So it's from that perspective, I think it's a good question in general that we should be thinking about, not necessarily specific for this feature. Maybe it is as simple as adding a streamer mode where certain sensitive information is hidden by default, right?
Yeah.
Is something that we could do. I almost consider that as a separate feature, right?
So a lot of people here are saying too, like, have a streamer mode where it like doesn't show the map, and like that still doesn't really like solve the problem because you kind of also need the map to be able to play.
Yeah.
And not only that, just by looking at the streamer's screen, you can get a lot of information that could damn the whole war. So it's like like I said, it's not a simple problem. I think it's an interesting one, but
I think there's things that can be done, right?
It's not impossible. It's just really hard.
Oh,
yeah.
And to be fair, also, I think it's not particular to our game as well. Look at any game that has, in which your location, for instance, is important. The biggest game right now that you saw an advertisement just a few minutes ago. If there's somebody streaming that without a delay, like they're like prime for stream sniping and things like that. It's like it is a problem that I think streaming in particular just faces due to the nature of it being immediate. I think it's actually less a problem in our game to some degrees because our game is not so immediate, in which like things happen like so quickly. Mm-hmm. But we'll see. We're definitely looking very closely into that problem.
And I guess one final thought is people are saying like, so you're encouraging people not to stream. How are you going to advertise your game and stuff like that?
Oh no,
no, we're not discouraging people from streaming. It's just it is a hard problem. We're definitely encouraging it. Our game is just not exactly the. I don't think we're
neglecting. I don't think what Matt's saying is that we're neglecting the issue. I think he's just simply saying it's hard, and that doesn't mean we're not going to work on. We work on the whole game is hard, and we're going to work on hard problems like World Conquest. I think solving that was probably way harder than putting in some option to hide some things for for a streamer mode.
Yeah.
So it's not I think it's just simply that we could add that. I think there will still be problems after that. That's fine. It doesn't mean we're not gonna.
It also might not come right away. Considering that we consider this, as Mark said, like a stream mode to possibly be even a different feature altogether that doesn't involve just operations, but it might involve how we handle the map, how we handle your location, how we handle so many things.
Yeah.
It might be a feature on itself. Then we can spend time working to make it a much better experience so that people can stream more and more. We are more than happy to have streamers.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. I can't remember who asked it. I lost it, but I remember the question. How do we feel about the length of wars? Is this something that was getting closer to our original goals?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think that 1 to 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks is great. I think maybe we need a little bit more content to make sure that there's new things to look forward to throughout the 2 weeks, which is actually a good problem to have, because making exciting new content is relatively easy. That stuff is there's definitely a lot of work, but it's just work. It's not risky doing a whole bunch of stuff and not knowing if any of that is going to work type of stuff. It's just okay, we wanted to make another vehicle. That is, relatively speaking, a good way to spend our dev time without too much risk, right? So I think now that the wars are lasting for longer than a week, and the tech tree kind of gets completely exhausted, and then players are still playing for another good few days or maybe even up to a week, right? That's perfect. I think that's perfect. We can put some more things at the end of the tech tree to make these wars more exciting. We can start going back to the idea of these higher end super weapons that start showing up at the end of the tech tree, and that's exciting to me because for a long time I almost feel like we had too much content for what's packed into a week, right? And now that we have longer wars, it's almost like an opportunity for us to kind of fill it, and that to me is exciting, right? So I think once we're done these these other tasks of the communication tools, working on some of the networking code, these really important almost maintenance tasks. I mean, they're more features than maintenance, but more of these responsible tasks. So to say, we can get back to making some fun stuff, right? Because we kind of have to balance it, work on some cool stuff and then work on some stuff that the game needs, that it's stressful and maybe perhaps more stressful than fun, right? So yeah.
Seems like water's working out though. So at least we got that one out of the way. So the next question that's come up a lot is clans and their integration in the game, and a lot of people have asked this question, especially with the upcoming operations. Will Foxhole see support for clans and clan tags in game?
I didn't want to mention that before, but we were thinking about things like that.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, you could always just say no comment and then move on.
Well, no,
I'm joking.
It's kind of a cop-out that we don't want to do.
So we've been talking about new communication tools and stuff like better voice integration for a very long time, and we've always said that's something that we want to do. It's something we want to do. It's something that we want to do, and we finally got to it, right? Mm-hmm. And I think clan support is very similar. It's something that we always want to do. We always want to do. I hope that we'll get to that at some point. I don't think it's going to be any time in the next couple of months, if I have to be honest, because our plate is quite full for the next couple of months. But I do want to see that in some form, later on. I think we'll get to it.
Well, clans is the kind of thing, integration with it is what I was mentioning about having it connected with the chat and the voice and all of that. And because of that, it is kind of important for us to focus on these features first, like the chat and all that first, so that when we do get to touch clients, everything is already laid there for us. It's definitely on the plate, and with something that we always wanted to do. Even the most basic thing, like having you being able to have your own name and have your clan tag automatically show up and things like that, which are supposedly simple. It's just the other things have a little bit of a priority. We always said that we want to build most basic tools first, so that we can always expand. And then I think after we did World Conquest, which is like pretty much the most basic of the tools, now we are able to get like the second layer, which is maybe the frosting. No, it's still
I don't know if this like analogy is holding up that.
It's not the decoration yet, but it's the frosting.
Right, like yeah.
And so we're doing those second to large features now, like revamping all the voice and chat, making sure that you can have like bigger cities like to play with, and things like that. And then after that comes all these technically smaller, I guess.
I think what we'll see like much later on, when we start closing in on like the 1.0 version of the game, is more like polish, right? I think that's where we're gonna look. Okay, we're gonna revamp some of the UI that's really old and like crufty. We're gonna like try to fix animations, some of the animations, make them better. Fix some of the bugs that are just a little bit like annoying, but that don't really break the game or aren't really that bad. You know, there's gonna be this time when we hone in onto all that stuff. Yeah, probably not this year. I think this year our plate is so full with a lot of really cool stuff. So yeah.
All right, next question. Lek Origins asks, any more info on the town/Logi revamps? To improve Logi, are you going to be adding a new vehicle, changing mechanics, some combination of both? Question mark.
It's a good question. Logi revamp will come first, but it will come in parts. Logi revamp is actually, we have a plan for that in place that stretches all the way till next year actually. And we're going to be putting it in piece by piece. It will involve new content. It will involve new things for Logi players to do. It'll involve, if it works out, being able to like change parts of the world. It's really cool, actually. I'm really excited about like I just like it's. I really want to talk about something.
We're not ready to talk about it exactly.
But the only reason why I'm not is because some of it requires some like technical experimentation that we got to be sure we can do it before we go off and start saying that we're gonna do it. But there's some really cool stuff that, you know, I just can't wait to like talk about.
Yeah, every time we talk about it internally, everybody gets really excited. So that's the little tease that I'll.
It's like basically Logi doesn't have like much progression. You get the sledgehammer and then that's kind of it. What we want to do is make sure that the stuff you're doing at the beginning of the game in terms of Logi, that's going to change just like how everything else changes. Like, you know, on combat side, you just start with like frag grenades and rifles and really basic stuff, and then you eventually move on to like armored cars and like HE grenades, and then eventually you get like ships and you get tanks. And you just, you know, that game changes so much. And Logi, you just, you know, you get sledges and then you kind of just doing the same thing. So what we want to do is make sure that in the mid game, you're doing some stuff, you have more options to do some stuff that's new. And then in later game, eventually, it's going to take a while. It's not coming anytime soon, but eventually there's even like some really cool stuff coming eventually where it's like, okay, at the end game, now Logi looks like very different, right? Yeah, so I'm hoping that in the next, like, we can talk about some of that stuff, I think hopefully in the next couple of weeks, and then some of it will come later, but there is a plan. It's definitely not like, you know, we're just not really sure and we might just throw out one small tweak or something. It's not, I would say of all the parts of the game, Logi is probably going to change the most.
That's a good answer.
From now until like the end, right? So yeah.
So there's a second part to that question about the town revamp. Do we want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, we're working on that right now.
Currently,
we have been working on that for like quite a while, and we're gonna be hopefully any kind of like live release. Hopefully, will be coming like maybe like early fall or something like that. But like I think we're gonna be talking about it a lot more before then. It's gonna be a lot of work.
It already has been a lot of work. It's good though. It's we can't really say too much or talk too much about it in stone because it's not in stone yet. But the stuff that we've seen is really promising. I guess get excited about it without me being able to show you why you should be.
Or not. We don't want to.
Or don't get excited. Or don't get excited. It'll be terrible, and then you'll hate it. And then when you see it, you expect anyway. So there was a really funny question. Why do you lose more stamina on bridges? And I would say that's like not a bug, but like an oversight. It's just like a mistake. I'll fix it. I'm sorry.
They're very hard to cross.
It's the rocks on the bridges are harder to
Sharp?
walk on, so
Yeah,
requires
it's
more
harder to walk
stamina.
on stone than dirt. That's all.
It's just realistic,
So realistic.
The last question I'm going to take is I can't remember who asked it. I lost it, but because the chat scrolls too fast. Are we going to be doing any kind of accessibility support for color blindness, especially with a color-coded chat?
That's a good point.
That's something
Actually,
I feel pretty strongly about. So, like, I think it's somehow we should do something because if you're colorblind and you can't see the colors and the chat's going to be color-coded, then you can't really play any kind of like logistical.
To one of the first concepts that I did for the new chat, like there has been several concept UIs. Mm-hmm. Some of them include the options of the chat, and in one of them, and a couple of them, there was some colorblind options for you to choose in the concept.
Cool. Okay,
so
cool.
yeah, we were thinking about that because if you can't see the colors, that completely negates the whole point of having colored names. Yeah, so we are looking into it. It might not be in the first implementation, keep that in mind, but accessibility in general is something that we are very, very forward about. Like we want it to be as accessible as possible, as much as in our means to make it.
So this really sucks, but I think one of the reasons sometimes that gets overlooked is probably when there's no one on the team who requires it. And so you don't always think about it right away. And that sucks. But it definitely, just having it be brought up is something that like will bring it to our attention.
Yeah,
and then we'll think about it and try to figure out a way to incorporate it.
Even something that we might have forgotten, like just do the crazy process that is making video games, bringing it up, make sure that we don't keep forgetting it or anything like that because it just got swapped under the rug. But it is something that we are actually very, very interested on.
Do we have time for one more?
We get time if you want to ask one more.
Let's do one more.
All right, let me just take a quick look. HB, why don't you announce the thing that's happening this week?
I was going to ask you exactly the same thing. Okay, so as you guys might or might not know, the combat prototype was launched 2 years ago exactly on Steam on this Friday, right? Friday the 13th, which is...
Was that the... Oh, it's Friday the 13th.
Yeah, it's Friday the 13th, yes.
Oh, no.
I just realized that. So because of that, to celebrate the 2-year anniversary of the Steam version of Foxhole, we're going to be doing something. And that is as precise as I can get it. We're probably going to be doing a stream. We're going to see if we can get to play some games with you guys, if possible. If nothing happens, I'll hop on to Discord and play video game with you guys alone.
So what I would expect to happen is at least like I can guarantee myself, HB and probably Anthony will be playing games.
Oh God, no.
as
So I actually don't know that much about this, but
so
That's because we have been planning.
we're gonna do we're gonna do just a friendly like game stream with some of the people in the office and just hang out with you guys just as a bit of a celebration. I kind of want to get some like I've been saying this, but I kind of want to get some like military surplus MREs or something.
Oh, I went
So
to
that
a military surplus store and it was really expensive. Like,
It
really
is, yeah.
expensive.
But I think it'd be funny and appropriate. All right, so with that, that'll be Friday, sometime Friday. Look out for some more information. HB and I will update you.
Yeah.
So last question, and I think it was a good one. It was just one that I felt like was probably going to be a little tougher. What's to encourage players to coordinate you? Like, why would someone coordinate with an operation? What if they disagree with you? What if they're vocal about it and it causes more chaos and arguments and there's no way to like, is there going to be a way to sort of diffuse that in the actual system, or is that just going to be up to player dynamics?
Well, and I've been
Aquilius.
reading this. I know that Aquilius like sent this question like several times, so I ended up reading it beforehand. He mentions as well, like, what if somebody changes the operation, things like that. So at least to begin with, we're going to make sure that the only people that can edit the operation and change are the leaders. So, and to begin with, like the leaders will be chosen by the guy that create the operation first. And there's going to be some other rules after that. So they are going to be the ones that are going to have the power over the operation, just like in squads right now in the game, right? So choose them carefully. In regards to people being problematic in the operation and creating more chaos than anything, all the tools that you already have to dealing with them in chat and things like that are going to be there for sure. You're going to be able to mute them and like block them and stuff like that. And we are considering the possibility of the leaders being able to kick people out of the operation. Something that we have to discuss. Like, we're still not 100% sure if that's the best approach, to be honest.
yeah,
There's like ramifications of you being able to do that.
I think some of the things, like, there's certainly two issues there. One is like sort of dealing with like a griefer. Someone comes into the operation and starts like causing problems. I think dealing with that is one thing. I think in terms of like you not like agreeing, that's kind of why we wanted to make the barrier to entry lower, because what we want to say is if you don't agree, then you can create your own operation.
Yeah.
And a bunch of people, if they want to follow you, they can just go off to your new operation. There's nothing stopping people from switching. And it is sort of like, if the new operation gets more players, it's going to be more like prominent, right? So it really is just like everything else in the game. It's like decided by the players, right? Where the players go is what players are going to do, right? So it's kind of up to you to sort of convince players that what your operation is doing is really valuable to your faction, and then players are going to join the operations that are the most valuable, and then in turn that's going to attract even more players, right?
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I'm speaking a little bit for myself, but the way we kind of see the operations is more of a organizational tool than a contract signed in blood, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you can always just not be part of an operation. You can play the game just the way it is right now. It's a tool that you can like opt into. We hope that players will start to use it more. That's our hope. But at the same time, if we find that, like, you know, a lot of players, you know, half the players that, let's say, are using it and half aren't, I don't think that's necessarily a huge problem, right?
Let's say, like, on a scenario in which we have the people that are using Discord don't use the operations, but operations turn out to be a very valuable tool for people that are not organized on Discord. That's valid for us as well.
Yeah.
We're already giving more tools for other players to organize, so that's fair. By the way, I don't know if you guys know, but there's a lot of our players are not part of our Discord. It's
There's a lot.
Like it's the majority actually that are not part of the Discord. So you can imagine that there's a lot of players that never actually get to be part of clans and anything like that. So we are trying to make an operations to work for everybody, including for people that have clans that work on Discord. But we, on the other hand, we want to make sure that it's just to help you organize, not to be like a deterrent to play in a way.
Maybe like picture this, right? This is how I'm imagining that I would end up using it if I were to play. Is I'm running around, I'm doing some work, and I end up in a squad with a group of people doing some short little like hit and run missions or something, and we end up kind of working together a little bit. We want to do something a little bit bigger, a little bit more organized. Okay, someone's like, I'm going to throw up an operation. Let's do this. And then you work together, you execute the operation, you move on. Yeah. At the very least, you were able to have that amount of coordination without having to just be like, well, no, go here. Well, where's here? I don't know where here is. Where's this location? I just marked it. I can't mark the next spot. Like, it allows you to have that freedom.
So, like, we've always said from the beginning of the project that we won't want to force structure onto players. And that hasn't changed at all. Like, this is why we don't have classes. This is why we don't have, like, these really strict, like, hierarchies where people will be like, you should know your role and you should do your role and you're playing out of your role and this is not how you play the game. That's something we never want in the game. And player operations is not a way to force players to force them into any kind of a structure, right? It is a tool to help players do what they're doing already more effectively, right? Mm-hmm. There's not going to be like, you can't force people to be like a medic in your operation, and then now he has to listen to everything that you have to say, and he doesn't agree with you, and now there's a problem. It's more like, I would imagine that if someone, rather than that scenario, I imagine that someone who kind of sees what you're doing and is excited about it, wants to be part about it, they can like opt in, or they cannot, right? That's as simple as that. It's a tool, right?
And if you're in a clan and you're doing a big, huge operation, it can be completely organized in game. Other players on your team can see it and not get in the way or help. Or get in the way. I don't know, but let's hope not. I think it's a really cool feature. I think there's going to be a lot of like shakedown as well. I think it'll go through a few iterations.
Oh, definitely.
For sure.
Yeah, I don't expect this feature to be like finalized.
No.
I mean, remember, like everything that we do, it's never the first version that sits.
First version is going to be a shit show. I'm calling it now.
Exactly. That's making games and that's making Foxhole. All right, let's move on. We're like 15 minutes over. I hope you guys have gotten a lot out of the stream. It was fun. I had a good time.
I have some things to say.
Yeah.
As always, I have 3 things to say. 4. First of all, Sapphire, I've been seeing your questions about mod tools and stuff like that. Just send it to us again. I think it's a good thing. But main one is, if you're seeing this on YouTube, if you want to ask questions live, catch us on Twitch, twitch.tv/foxholegame. Every second Tuesdays at 2 p.m. EST. The link is gonna be in here. Also, if you're not part of the Discord already, join our Discord, also in here. Because this Friday, also Friday the 13th, and depends on how long it takes for me to edit this video, might be this Friday or the past Friday. We're gonna be doing something to celebrate 2 years of Foxhole. So stay tuned there. We're gonna post more details and come join us to celebrate the festivities.
It probably will be really like chill and casual, just for the record. It's not like gonna be this like huge event.
Yeah, it's just have some things to drink and have fun.
We'll post a link to where that's going to be because that might not be on the official channel. We'll see. As always, stay foxy.